How many of you remember Nathan Jones? You know, the guy that was supposed to tag team with The Undertaker at WrestleMania 19 to take on The Big Show and Albert. Instead of wrestling in that match itself, Jones was limited to a run-in to help The Undertaker get a win over the duo in a handicap match. That was certainly below par for Undertaker matches on the grandest stage of them all. Jones was pulled from the match after a backstage beatdown from Show and A-Train took him out of the match, when in reality, Vince McMahon just felt like Jones wasn't ready for the big stage. He would return and eventually have a big match at the same year's Survivor Series before walking away from wrestling for good during a tour stop in Perth, Australia just a few weeks later. Just like that, Nathan Jones was gone for good from WWE, but he still remains till this day as one of the most talked about characters from his era. That is in large part because of his background, not just a typical background for a wrestler like a college football player or a club bouncer or maybe even a bodybuilder. No, Jones had a background as a criminal long before lacing up his boots for the WWE. Somehow one of Australia's 10 most wanted men made his way to the big stage of WrestleMania. Meanwhile, nowadays, Jones leaves his mark on the Hollywood big screen. This is a story of crime, redemption, and success. This is the story of WWE's most insane criminal, Nathan Jones. Nathan Jones was born in Victoria, Queensland, Australia, to a family with an incredible background. His grandfather was a caber tossing champion in New Zealand, and his great-grandfather was a member of the Nautical Task Force. His great-grandfather was the only one of 6 men that survived a sinking ship after he swam across the River Thames in below freezing temperatures. It makes sense now why Jones himself is the physical specimen that he is, standing at 6'11" and weighing 330 pounds. He certainly checked every single physical box to be a top star in WWE. This is no doubt why Vince McMahon hired him in late 2000 and sent him to OVW. In OVW, he trained with the OVW4, Randy Orton, Brock Lesnar, Batista, and John Cena, along with many others. Long before appearing in WWE, in 1997 to be exact, Jones would engage in a legitimate shoot fight with Japanese sumo wrestler Koji Katao in the first ever Pride fighting event, all for the entertainment of the Japanese faithful. Jones lost the fight, of course, and then he later clarified that the fight was a work shoot, so I guess he took the dive for this business, pal. In early 2002, vignettes for Jones' debut began airing during episodes of SmackDown, and might I say, these vignettes were extremely well done. The quality of these vignettes still hold up today over 20 years later, making it easy for me to see why there was insane levels of hype surrounding Jones. Now, what was unique about these vignettes is that they were based off Jones' real-life past as a criminal. He would be seen posing in a jail cell while clips of news coverage surrounding his escape from prison echoed in the background. Going back and watching these vignettes was an interesting experience for me, as I did not remember these from my childhood. I was blown away by how well produced they were. Similar to Ahmed Johnson, Nathan Jones had every physical tool imaginable to the point where Vince McMahon was practically begging him to take his money. Simply put, Jones just did not want it. He was described as a quiet guy by the likes of Jim Ross and his former tag team partner Matt Morgan. Jim Ross said that he just did not have the mindset to survive in the locker room full of jokesters and people that wanted to test him because of his past. He did not find the jokes funny, and he struggled to fit in, thus making himself an outsider from the rest of the boys. Ross went on to mention on his podcast Grilling JR that Jones' downfall within the wrestling business was his people skills and that he struggled to learn the business, but more importantly, he showed no interest in adapting to the traditions and the unwritten rules of the game. So let's recap for a moment. Nathan Jones was sentenced to 16 years in a maximum security prison called Bugger Road Gaol in Queensland, Australia, hence where he got the name the Colossus of Bugger Road. Then he becomes a powerlifting champion, partakes in an MMA fight, appears in a WrestleMania match with The Undertaker, and lastly stars in the movie Mad Max. What a life this guy has lived. I still cannot believe that Vincent Kennedy McMahon sat in a creative meeting with Jones and several job-scared writers and staff and decided to use the name the Colossus of Bugger Road for a wrestler on a family TV show. Then again, 2002 is also the year that brought us Katie Vick, so anything was possible during a banner year of creativity for WWE. By the time 2003 rolled around, Jones had dropped the Colossus of Bugger Road gimmick. Rumors are that he was not comfortable with the gimmick and could not find himself in it, which is pretty ironic if that is true, considering he did legitimate hard time at the Bugger Road prison and committed the crimes that his gimmick alleged. Nevertheless, I digress. Being that his personality was not very infectious to say the least, I could see him just wanting to be a straight up ass kicker a la Brock Lesnar. But there's only one Brock, so there goes that. After WrestleMania 19, Jones was sent to train in OVW because, as Raw stated, he needed more coaching. He was brought back to the main roster and eventually became a duo with Matt Morgan, whom Brock Lesnar would serve as an on-screen mentor for. Jones competed for Team Lesnar at Survivor Series 03 in a losing effort against Team Angle. This would be his last WWE pay-per-view appearance ever, as he would walk out of WWE for good, right before a live event in Perth, Australia was scheduled to start. The story of him walking out is kind of egregious, and according to Matt Morgan, Morgan was getting warmed up with his gear on, doing push-ups, and then all of a sudden Jones walked up to him right before they were scheduled to perform, no less, and shook his hand and told him thanks for being his tag partner, and then wished him the best and just walked out the door. Morgan later said that he followed Jones outside in his gear in the freezing cold weather of the Outback to talk Jones into coming back, but to no avail. Brock Lesnar stated in his autobiography that Jones snapped and yelled about how he could not stand the travel anymore, so he was done. He didn't even tell anyone in the office, he just walked out. I picture this giant Australian man that did hard time in a maximum security prison yelling at Brock Lesnar. What a visual. Surely due to his size and the way he lived for so long in confinement, I imagine Jones really could not stand the travel. However, not everyone sees it this way. On the Keeping It 100 with Conan podcast, Disco Inferno and Conan speculated that Jones essentially got bullied out of wrestling by the veteran talents that would test him. I assume guys like The Undertaker, Chris Benoit, and JBL are some of the prime culprits in that equation. I certainly am not going to be the one that suggests that a 6'11" former criminal and champion powerlifter got bullied out of any profession, so that is merely a quote from another source. Now let's go deeper into the crimes that Jones committed. There was not a ton of information on the specifics of the cases he was involved in. However, what I did find was very spicy, including a 2002 interview with Jones conducted by WWE.com, of all places no less. During the interview, he was asked several questions about his past and his time in prison. Here are some of the revelations that Jones brought to light. Firstly, he stated that he was involved in 8 armed bank robberies across the land down under. The last one, the one that he was arrested for, took place in Tasmania. He stated that he was emptying the money into a bag when 2 officers surrounded him, and he threw one of the officers through a wall. That sounds like a scene straight out of GTA if I've ever heard one. He later recalled a story that took place in a Tasmanian prison where he was initially held. And that story is when it took 10 prison guards to subdue him. The guards used gas on him and then proceeded to tackle him with their shields and batons, but that wasn't enough as he fought them all off. Eventually, the guards used knockout gas on him, which sparked a controversy within the island of Tasmania over the treatment of inmates in their prisons. Jones said that he once broke out of solitary confinement and that he would rip off prison cell doors. Jesus, this dude is not one to mess with. Again, not much is known of the details of the crimes that he committed, but Disco Inferno recalled that when he was speaking with Jones, Jones actually told him that he got into a shootout with cops during one of his bank heists. Given his demeanor and past, I did not expect what I saw when I watched a recent interview Jones gave to the media a few years ago. He was soft-spoken, naturally charismatic, and funny. It was almost surreal. His wife is a small Asian lady that is barely half his size, and he has a young son nowadays. Nathan overcame the life of crime and became a family man and a Hollywood actor. He had a role alongside Brad Pitt in the movie Troy, and more recently he starred in Mad Max Fury Road as Rictus Erectus, a role he is set to reprise in the next rendition of Mad Max, Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. The film is set to release in 2024. Jones has had a fascinating life to say the very least. And that's it. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all have a great rest of your day. Peace.